The Silent Vanguard, Part 1. The Watchers. Dr. Elena Martinez stood before the quantum observation array deep within Olympus Mons, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed humanity's greatest fear materializing at the edge of charted space. The Hegemony war fleet, over 300 vessels strong, had just emerged from hyperspace near the Kuiper Belt. "Time to arrival?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant David Chen consulted his neural interface. "At their current velocity, 72 hours until they reach Mars orbit, Doctor." Elena nodded, watching the massive ships crawl across the solar system like predatory insects. To anyone else, the quantum array would have appeared to be a simple deep space monitoring station, primitive radio telescopes, and basic optical sensors. The truth, like most of humanity's achievements over the past 50 years, was far more sophisticated. "Alert Protocol Omega is now in effect," she announced to the control room. "Initiate the veil." Around her, 24 of Earth's brightest minds worked at their stations, their movements precise and practiced. They'd rehearsed this moment countless times, but the weight of reality made every action feel different, more final. The veil, humanity's greatest deception, began its work. Across the solar system, thousands of quantum-linked satellites adjusted their emissions, creating a carefully crafted illusion of a primitive civilization. Spacecraft in orbit deliberately leaked radiation signatures consistent with fusion drives, while in reality they ran on zero-point energy. Ground-based industries pumped out carefully calculated levels of pollution, maintaining the facade of a species still dependent on fossil fuels. "Dr. Martinez," a soft voice called from the communication station. "The Security Council is waiting." Elena straightened her uniform and stepped onto the quantum projection pad. The air shimmed, and suddenly she stood in a secure chamber 2 kilometers beneath Geneva. The faces of humanity's leadership looked back at her from their seats around a circular table, some physically present, others projected like herself. "The Hegemony has arrived ahead of schedule," she began without preamble. "Our deep cover operatives in the Centauri colonies were correct about their intentions. They mean to add Earth to their collection of subordinate worlds." Secretary General Rahman leaned forward, his holographic form flickering slightly. "And they still have no idea." "None," Elena confirmed. "Our quantum masking technology remains undetected. As far as they can tell, we're exactly what we appear to be, a young species that barely reached its moon, struggling with our first steps into space." "The Mars colonies?" General Zhang asked. "Completely hidden. The quantum shroud makes them appear as nothing more than automated research stations. The Hegemony scans will show exactly what we want them to see, a handful of primitive habitats struggling to maintain atmospheric pressure." The room fell silent as Elena brought up a tactical display of the approaching fleet. The Hegemony ships were impressive, their crystalline hulls gleaming with captured starlight. To most civilizations in known space, they represented unstoppable technological superiority. "They're following their standard protocol," Elena continued. "Based on records from other conquered worlds, they'll begin with a show of force, destroying a few of our primitive satellites to demonstrate their superiority. Then comes the ultimatum: submit to their rule or face extinction. And our response remains unchanged." This from Admiral Jones, her weathered face grave. "Operation Looking Glass proceeds as planned," Elena confirmed. "The Phantom Fleet is in position, hidden in the quantum foam of spacetime. The moment they move against Earth, they'll discover that humanity's apparent technological level has been a carefully crafted illusion." Dr. Patel, head of the Quantum Physics Division, raised his hand. "The latest simulations confirm our advantages. While the Hegemony has mastered conventional space warfare, they've never encountered quantum phase technology. Their shields will be useless against our weapons." Elena brought up another display, this one showing the true extent of humanity's hidden military power. Stealth carriers lurked in the shadows of every major celestial body in the solar system. Quantum-shifted battleships waited in dimensional pockets, invisible to conventional sensors. And deep within Mars, production facilities that had worked for decades stood ready to replace any losses they might suffer. How did we reach this point? Secretary General Raman asked quietly. How did humanity become so adept at deception? Elena had asked herself the same question many times. We learned from history, she replied. Every time a technologically superior force encountered a primitive civilization on Earth, the results were devastating for the less advanced society. When we discovered we weren't alone in the galaxy, we made a choice. Instead of rushing to announce ourselves, we watched. We learned. We developed in secret. And now, General John's hologram flickered with static. Now we spring the trap that's been 50 years in the making. Elena's voice carried absolute conviction. The hegemony believes they're dealing with a pre-spacefaring civilization. Their arrogance will be their undoing. She brought up one final display, a timeline of humanity's true technological development. While the world saw nuclear rockets and clumsy space stations, hidden facilities had mastered quantum physics, zero-point energy, and technologies that the hegemony couldn't imagine. Every public failure had been carefully staged, every setback calculated to reinforce the image of a struggling young species. Final preparations are underway, Elena reported. Civilian governments are implementing their parts of the plan, though they think it's just another readiness drill. The public won't know the truth until the hegemony forces our hand. And the Perseus Protocol? Admiral Jones asked. Ready but unnecessary, I hope. If things go wrong, we can still evacuate Earth's population to the deep colonies, but I don't believe it will come to that. The hegemony is about to learn that appearance and reality can be very different things. The meeting continued for another hour, reviewing contingencies and confirming protocols that had been in place for decades. When it finally ended, Elena found herself back in the Mars Control Center, watching the approaching fleet. Lieutenant Chen appeared at her side with a cup of coffee, real coffee, grown in the hidden hydroponic gardens of Olympus Mons. They're scanning us, he reported. Full spectrum analysis. Elena smiled slightly. And what do they see? Exactly what we want them to. Primitive fission reactors, basic ion engines, early warning systems that barely deserve the name. They're probably writing their conquest reports already. Humanity's greatest advantage, Elena mused, has always been our ability to learn from our mistakes. We saw what happened to civilizations that advertised their achievements before they were ready. We chose a different path. She turned to face the control room, where humanity's best and brightest continued their work, maintaining the illusion that would soon shatter so spectacularly. Send word to the fleet, she ordered. Tell them to maintain quantum silence, but be ready. The hegemony is about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that learns to play prey. As she watched the alien ships approach, Elena thought about the generations of scientists, engineers, and soldiers who had maintained this deception. They had sacrificed the glory of public achievement for the security of secret advancement. Soon, that sacrifice would prove its worth. The game was about to begin, and humanity held all the cards, even if their opponents didn't know they were playing yet. Let them come, she whispered to herself. Let them come and learn why humanity chose to hide in plain sight. The quantum display continued its silent countdown, marking humanity's final hours of pretense before their true face wove the deception. Admiral James Chen watched the holographic representation of Earth's orbital space from his command center deep within Cheyenne Mountain. Hundreds of satellites cluttered low Earth orbit, weather monitors, communication relays, and crude GPS platforms. All of them were real, all of them functional, and all of them completely expendable. Status of the Ghost Fleet? He asked, his voice carrying across the hushed command center. Commander Sarah Rodriguez responded without looking up from her quantum interface. All vessels maintaining perfect quantum silence, sir. The hegemony scanning beams are passing right through them. The Ghost Fleet represented humanity's true military might. 36 carrier groups hidden in quantum pocket space, their advanced weapons and zero-point drives completely invisible to conventional detection methods. To the approaching hegemony armada, Earth appeared to have nothing more threatening than a handful of primitive orbital defense platforms. Their lead elements have crossed Jupiter's orbit, Rodriguez reported. They're moving exactly as intelligence predicted, standard conquest formation. Chen allowed himself a small smile. The hegemony's military doctrine hadn't changed in centuries. Why should it? They hadn't faced meaningful resistance in over a millennium. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Let's give them something to see. Across Earth's orbital space, carefully orchestrated activity began. A small crew capsule with deliberately inefficient ion engines started a clumsy orbital adjustment. 3 communications satellites initiated obviously primitive collision avoidance protocols. A space station visible from Earth made a show of adjusting its solar panels with jerky mechanical movements. "Sir," Lieutenant Park called from the communications station, "we're picking up their first directed transmission. They're broadcasting on simple radio frequencies, exactly what they'd expect us to be using." "Put it through." The harsh, metallic voice of the hegemony's commander filled the command center. "Primitive species of Sol system. This is High Commander Vextal of the Eternal Hegemony. Your existence has been noted and evaluated. Prepare for inspection and categorization." Chen nodded to his communications officer. "Send the prepared response. Remember, make it sound appropriately panicked." Earth's reply went out on multiple frequencies, deliberately cluttered with static and signal degradation. "Unknown vessels, this is Earth Space Control. We are a peaceful planet. Please identify your intentions. Our defensive capabilities are armed, but we seek diplomatic contact." The mention of defensive capabilities was carefully calculated. Let the hegemony think Earth had some token resistance planned. It would make their deception all the more convincing. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, "they're launching scout craft. 3 vessels, approaching our outer defense perimeter." Chen watched as the alien ships approached the ring of satellites that constituted Earth's supposed first line of defense. The satellites were real enough, equipped with basic kinetic weapons and primitive shields. They were designed to fail spectacularly. Time to first contact. 4 minutes until they're in range of Defense Satellite Alpha 7. The command center fell silent as they watched the drama unfold. The hegemony scouts approached confidently, their sensors probing Earth's defenses. They would find exactly what humanity wanted them to find. Technology that was barely worth noting. "They're firing," Rodriguez announced. A beam of concentrated plasma struck Alpha 7. The satellite's shields flared briefly, pathetically, before failing. The explosion was impressive, scattering debris across a wide arc. "Satellite telemetry performing perfectly," Technical Officer Zhang reported. "All sensors transmitted their data before destruction. The hegemony is getting a very good look at our best technology." Chen stood and walked to the main tactical display. Beneath the visible layer showing Earth's primitive defenses, quantum imaging revealed the true situation. The Ghost Fleet's carriers had positioned themselves in a 3-dimensional web around the solar system. Each carried squadrons of phase-shifted fighters and quantum torpedoes that could bypass any known shielding technology. "Sir," Park interrupted, "we're getting civilian broadcasts. News networks are picking up the destruction of our satellites. Social media is exploding with panic." "Good," Chen replied. "Make sure our secret military channels are leaking appropriately. Let them intercept our worried transmissions." The next few hours followed the script perfectly. The hegemony scouts destroyed several more satellites, each one providing a carefully curated display of humanity's supposed technological level. Earth's response was appropriately chaotic. Civilian panic, military alerts, and governmental confusion, all carefully orchestrated. "Admiral," Rodriguez said suddenly, "the main hegemony fleet is accelerating. They'll reach Earth orbit in 6 hours." Chen nodded. "Right on schedule. Status of the Ghost Fleet. All vessels report ready." Quantum cores are hot but masked. Phase shields are operating at full capacity. We could engage at any moment without warning. And our ground installations. Zhang consulted his displays. All quantum weapon platforms are disguised and ready. The Mars defense grid is fully powered but undetectable. Lunar bases are maintaining emission controls. Chen allowed himself a moment to appreciate the sheer scale of humanity's deception. While they had publicly struggled with basic rocket technology, secret facilities across the solar system had perfected technologies that would shock the hegemony. Every failed space mission, every public setback had been carefully planned to maintain the illusion of a primitive species. New transmission from the hegemony fleet, Park announced. The same harsh voice filled the command center, but now it carried the smug superiority of a predator confident in its prey's weakness. People of Earth, your defensive capabilities have been evaluated and found insufficient. Prepare for arrival of the main fleet. Resistance will result in immediate planetary bombardment. You have 6 hours to prepare your leaders for submission. Chen keyed his private quantum link to Dr. Martinez on Mars. They've taken the bait, completely convinced of their superiority. Excellent. Elena's voice came back, clear despite the distance. The quantum nets are ready. The moment they commit to orbit, they'll find their fancy drives completely useless. And the civilian governments, playing their parts perfectly. The UN Security Council is publicly calling for emergency sessions. Military forces worldwide are making a show of mobilizing. As far as the hegemony can tell, we're scrambling to mount a hopeless defense. Chen studied the tactical display again. The hegemony fleet was arranging itself in a standard conquest formation. Heavy battleships in the center, escort cruisers in a defensive screen, and troop transports hanging back for the occupation phase. They haven't varied their tactics in 1,000 years, he mused. Why should they? No one's ever surprised them. Until now, Elena replied. Quantum Command confirms we're go for Phase 3. The moment they commit to orbit, humanity shows its true face. Chen turned to address his command staff. Send word to all Ghost Fleet elements. Maintain quantum silence, but begin combat alignment. When the hegemony moves to strike, we want their first indication of our true capabilities to be their last tactical mistake. As the hours counted down, Chen reflected on humanity's long game. 50 years of hiding their true capabilities, of presenting a facade of primitive technology, while secretly mastering forces the hegemony couldn't comprehend. Now that deception was about to pay off in spectacular fashion. Sir, Rodriguez called out. Hegemony fleet is beginning their final approach. Their weapons are hot, shields at maximum. Chen smiled. Perfect. Let them come in close. Let them think they've got us exactly where they want us. Sometimes the best trap is the one your enemy never suspects exists. The massive alien fleet moved with practiced precision, utterly unaware that they were flying into the most elaborate ambush in human military history. The ultimatum. Captain Sarah Way stood in the command center of the VSS Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays showing the hegemony fleet's final approach. Her vessel, technically non-existent according to all public records, floated in a quantum pocket dimension less than 10,000 kilometers from the alien armada's flagship. They have no idea we're here, her XO, Commander Michael Torres, whispered. Though the aliens couldn't possibly hear them, the moment demanded quiet. Their sensors are passing right through us. Sarah watched as another scan wave rippled through the Prometheus's quantum-shifted hull. The massive carrier and its complement of advanced fighters remained completely invisible, one of dozens of similar vessels hidden throughout the solar system. Status of the quantum net? She asked. Ready for activation. Lieutenant Jessica Chang responded from the tactical station. The moment we get the signal, we can trap their entire fleet in normal space. No retreat, no reinforcements. The quantum net represented one of humanity's greatest technological achievements, a web of linked quantum fields that could prevent faster-than-light travel within the solar system. The hegemony was about to discover that their easy conquest had become a cage. New transmission from the alien flagship, Communications Officer Patel announced. They're broadcasting system-wide. The image of High Commander Vextal appeared on the main screen, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under artificial light. People of Earth, the alien's voice carried the weight of assumed authority. Your evaluation period has concluded. Your species has been deemed technologically insufficient for independent status. You have 2 of your planetary rotations to submit to hegemony authority. Failure to comply will result in immediate orbital bombardment and forced integration. Sarah watched the reactions cascade across Earth's information networks. Social media exploded with panic. Governments issued conflicting statements, and military forces made a show of mobilizing. All carefully choreographed, all part of humanity's greatest deception. They're deploying their fleet into standard orbital positions, Torres reported. Weapons platforms ready for bombardment, troop transports maintaining safe distance. Sarah nodded, studying the tactical display. And our real assets. Ghost fleet carriers are all in position. Quantum strike fighters are ready for phase shift. Ground-based installations are masked but powered. The Mars defense grid is online but invisible to their scans. A private quantum communication channel opened, displaying Admiral Chen's holographic form. Captain Wei, status report. Prometheus battle group is ready. Admiral, all vessels maintaining quantum silence. We can initiate combat operations the moment you give the word. Excellent. We've just received word from the Security Council. They'll be delivering Earth's official response to the ultimatum in 1 hour. Make sure your crews are ready. The moment Earth surrenders, the hegemony will begin their standard occupation procedure. Sarah smiled slightly and walked right into our trap. The next hour passed with excruciating slowness. Sarah used the time to make final inspections of her ship's systems. The Prometheus represented the pinnacle of human military technology, a quantum drive carrier capable of shifting between dimensions, armed with weapons that could bypass any known defense. Message from Earth, Patel announced. The Security Council is transmitting their response. The image of Secretary General Raman appeared on screens across the solar system. His performance was perfect, a leader trying to maintain dignity in the face of inevitable defeat. To the representatives of the hegemony, he began, his voice carefully modulated to show restrained fear. After consultation with Earth's governments, we have reached a decision. While we protest the arbitrary nature of your judgment, we recognize the futility of resistance. We will submit to hegemony authority under the condition that civilian populations are spared from orbital bombardment. Sarah watched the hegemony's reaction closely. Their fleet shifted slightly, weapons powering down as they prepared for what they assumed would be a routine occupation. Their guard is dropping, Torres observed. They're completely convinced of their victory. Transmission from High Commander Vextal, Patel reported. The alien leader's image appeared again, radiating smugness. Your submission is accepted. Prepare your orbital facilities for immediate occupation. Resistance at any stage will result in planetary punishment. We will demonstrate our authority by destroying your primitive orbital defense platforms. Consider this your first lesson in hegemony dominance. Sarah's quantum link chimed. Admiral Chen's voice came through, clear and determined. All Ghost Fleet elements, this is command. Prepare for Operation Revelation. The moment they fire on our defense platforms, humanity shows its true face. Throughout the solar system, quantum-shifted vessels moved into their final attack positions. On Mars, Dr. Martinez and her team prepared to activate the quantum net. In hidden bases across Earth and Luna, weapon systems powered up while maintaining their perfect camouflage. They're targeting our defense satellites, Chang reported. Energy weapons charging. Sarah took her command chair, feeling the subtle hum of the Prometheus's quantum core. All hands, battle stations, prepare for phase shift on my mark. The hegemony weapons fired, their energy beams reaching out to destroy Earth's supposedly primitive defenses. They had no way of knowing that this act of casual destruction would trigger humanity's carefully planned counterattack. Energy weapons impact in 5 seconds, Chang announced. 4, 3, 2. Sarah allowed herself one final smile. Time to show the galaxy why you should never judge a species by its appearance. The satellites exploded spectacularly, creating a brief but brilliant display of fireworks in Earth orbit. The Hegemony fleet began moving into occupation positions, their sensors still showing nothing but a helpless primitive world. They never saw the quantum fields activating around them. They never detected the ghost fleet vessels shifting into normal space. They had no warning at all before humanity revealed its true technological might. Admiral Chen is transmitting to all vessels, Patil announced. Operation Revelation is now active. Sarah straightened in her chair. Bring us into normal space. Let's show the Hegemony what humanity has been hiding all these years. The VSS Prometheus and dozens of other advanced warships prepared to materialize around the alien fleet. Humanity's age of deception was about to end in a display of technological superiority that would reshape galactic politics forever. The trap was set, the prey was in position, and humanity was ready to demonstrate why appearances can be deceiving. The revelation. High Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching with satisfaction as the primitive human satellites exploded. Another routine conquest, another inferior species brought under Hegemony control. His bridge crew worked with mechanical precision, coordinating the fleet's occupation pattern. Then every alarm on his ship screamed at once. Impossible energy signatures detected. His sensor officer shouted, mandibles clicking in confusion. Multiple vessels materializing. They're everywhere. The tactical display transformed from orderly conquest to chaos as dozens of massive warships simply appeared among his fleet. Ships that hadn't been there seconds ago. Ships that couldn't exist on a primitive world. Ships that radiated power levels exceeding even Hegemony technology. Aboard the VSS Prometheus, Captain Sarah Y watched her tactical display light up as the ghost fleet revealed itself. All vessels, weapons free, she commanded. Execute Operation Revelation. The Prometheus's quantum weapons fired, their beams passing through the Hegemony's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they weren't there. 3 alien cruisers vanished in balls of blue fire before they could even register what was happening. The quantum net is active, Lieutenant Chang reported. Their FTL capabilities are neutralized. No escape, no reinforcements. In Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold. Send the message, he ordered. Let's explain to our visitors exactly what they've walked into. Across all frequencies, in perfect Hegemony language, humanity's message played. Attention Hegemony forces. You assumed we were primitive. You assumed we were defenseless. That was your mistake. For 50 years, humanity has hidden its true capabilities, waiting for this moment. Welcome to the trap. On Mars, Dr. Elena Martinez monitored the quantum net's performance. The field is holding perfectly, she reported to Chen. Their ships are trying to engage FTL drives, but they're completely contained. The Hegemony fleet's elegant formation had dissolved into chaos. Their ships, designed to fight in perfect coordination, found themselves isolated and surrounded. Every tactic they tried failed against weapons and defenses they'd never encountered. Impossible. Vextal raged on his bridge. They're barbarians. They'd barely reached their moon. That's what we wanted you to think. Sarah's voice came through on his command channel. Every failed launch, every primitive satellite, every piece of outdated technology was carefully crafted to deceive. While you watched our public space program struggle, we built something you never expected. The Prometheus pivoted impossibly, its quantum drives allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. More Hegemony vessels fell to its precisely targeted shots, their ancient shields useless against weapons they'd never encountered. All Ghost Fleet elements reporting successful engagements, Commander Torres announced on the Prometheus's bridge. The Hegemony fleet is in complete disarray. They can't coordinate their responses. In orbit around Mars, hidden defense platforms suddenly revealed themselves, their quantum weapons adding to the devastation. The hegemony ships found themselves caught in a three-dimensional killing field, with nowhere to run and no way to fight back effectively. Message from High Commander Vextall. Communications Officer Paddle reported. He's demanding to know what we are. Sarah smiled. Put me through to all channels. She stood from her command chair, her voice clear and strong. This is Captain Sarah Way of the VSS Prometheus. You came to our system expecting to find primitive weapons and simple defenses. You thought humanity would be easy prey like so many others. That was your first mistake. The Prometheus effortlessly evaded a desperate barrage of hegemony fire, its quantum-shifted hull making conventional targeting impossible. Your second mistake was assuming that just because we're young, we're predictable. Humanity has spent generations preparing for this moment, studying your tactics, learning your weaknesses. We built our true fleet in secret not because we feared you, but because we wanted you to underestimate us. On Earth, civilian populations watched in awe as the sky lit up with the battle. The truth was finally revealed. Their government's apparent technological stumbles had been an elaborate deception, hiding the greatest military advancement in human history. Admiral, Elena's voice came through from Mars. The hegemony fleet is trying to coordinate a counterattack. Their command and control systems are adapting. Then it's time for Phase 2, Chen ordered. Captain Wei, you have authorization to deploy the quantum cascade. Sarah nodded to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Chung, initiate the cascade. The Prometheus's quantum core pulsed, sending out a wave of energy that rippled through space-time itself. Hegemony ships found their energy systems disrupted, their weapons powerless, their shields failing. How? Vextall demanded over the command channel. You are nothing. A primitive species that barely reached its own moon. That's what we wanted you to think. Sarah replied calmly. While you watched our civilian space program, we built something new, something you've never seen before. Because humanity doesn't just adapt, we innovate. We create, and most importantly, we learn from the mistakes of others. The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. The hegemony fleet, stripped of its technological advantages and faced with weapons they couldn't counter, fell piece by piece to humanity's hidden might. High Commander Vextall is requesting terms, Patil announced finally. Sarah looked to her tactical display, where the once mighty hegemony fleet had been reduced to a handful of crippled vessels. Tell him that humanity accepts his surrender, and that we look forward to discussing the new balance of power in the galaxy. As the adrenaline of battle faded, she thought about the generations of scientists, soldiers, and leaders who had maintained this deception. They had sacrificed the glory of public achievement for the security of secret advancement. Today, that sacrifice had paid off beyond their wildest dreams. Send word to Admiral Chen, she ordered. Operation Revelation is complete. The galaxy now knows humanity's true face. The stars seemed somehow brighter as the Ghost Fleet secured their victory. Humanity's hidden power finally revealed to a watching galaxy. The New Dawn. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, Dr. Elena Martinez stood in the newly unveiled Quantum Observatory in Geneva, watching representatives from 20 different alien civilizations file into the conference chamber. The room hummed with nervous energy and whispered conversations in a dozen different languages. Quite a change from hiding in Olympus Mons, Admiral Chen said, appearing beside her. He wore his formal uniform, decorated with the newly created Ghost Fleet insignia. Change is what we do best, Elena replied, watching as High Commander Vextall, now serving as the hegemony's chief diplomatic envoy, entered the chamber. The once proud warrior carried himself differently now, his crystalline exoskeleton dulled with what his species considered marks of humility. The Security Council is ready, Captain Sarah Way announced, joining them. Her dress uniform bore the battle honors from Operation Revelation. It's time to explain ourselves to the galaxy. The three of them took their places at the central podium. Above them, a holographic display showed the true extent of human space development. The massive shipyards hidden in Mercury's quantum shadow, the sprawling cities beneath Mars's surface, the research facilities scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Secretary General Raman opened the session. Representatives of the galactic community, we have called this conference to address the questions that have arisen since humanity's emergence 1 month ago. A Centaurian delegate rose immediately. Questions. You maintained an impossible deception for half a century. You developed technologies that shouldn't exist. The hegemony's defeat has destabilized the entire power structure of known space. Elena stepped forward. That was precisely the point, she said calmly. When humanity first detected alien civilizations, we studied history, both yours and ours. We saw a pattern. Young species that revealed their advances too quickly either became vassals or targets. She gestured, and the holographic display showed Earth's carefully crafted facade, the primitive satellites, the struggling space program, the apparent technological limitations. So we chose a different path. While showing the galaxy a struggling young species, we built something unprecedented. But the resources required, a Proximan representative objected. The coordination, the secrecy, it should have been impossible. Admiral Chen addressed this. Humanity has always excelled at achieving the impossible when properly motivated. Every nation, every government understood the stakes. We had our conflicts, our disagreements, but the need to survive united us in ways we never expected. The holographic display shifted to show the Ghost Fleet emerging from quantum space during the battle. Several delegates flinched at the imagery. Your weapons. Vextal spoke for the first time, his voice carrying both bitterness and respect. They bypassed our strongest defenses. How? Sarah stepped forward. While you perfected conventional space combat, we explored different principles entirely. Quantum phase technology, zero-point energy manipulation, dimensional shifting. Paths you overlooked because they seemed impractical. And now, this from a representative of the Free Worlds Alliance. What are humanity's intentions? You've proven you can destroy the greatest military power in known space. What's to stop you from becoming conquerors yourselves? Elena smiled, because that was never our goal. We hid our capabilities not out of aggression, but out of a desire to join the galactic community on our own terms. Today, we're proposing a new framework for interstellar relations. The holographic display changed again, showing a new organizational structure. The era of single-species dominance must end. Elena continued. We're proposing the formation of a true galactic council, where technological advancement is shared rather than hoarded, where younger civilizations are nurtured rather than subjugated. And if we refuse? The hegemony representative asked. Then humanity will continue to defend itself. Admiral Chen replied simply. But we would rather build bridges than walls. We've proven we can fight. Now let us prove we can lead. The conference continued for hours as humanity laid out its vision for the future. They revealed more of their technological advances, but also their philosophical evolution, how the very act of hiding their capabilities had taught them patience, strategy, and the importance of looking beyond apparent limitations. Later, as the delegates broke for recess, Elena found herself in the observatory's garden, with Sarah and Chen, watching Earth rotate slowly in the night sky. Do you think they'll accept it? Sarah asked. This new order we're proposing. They don't have much choice, Chen noted. We've demonstrated we can't be conquered or coerced. But more importantly, we've shown we can think differently, solve problems they considered impossible. Elena touched the quantum interface embedded in her wrist, feeling the subtle connection to humanity's hidden networks. We spent 50 years pretending to be less than we are. Now comes the harder part, proving we can be more than they fear. The quantum net is being adapted for faster-than-light communications, Sarah said. The phase drive technology can revolutionize colonization efforts. Everything we developed in secret can change life for every species. And that's the real revelation, Elena smiled. Not just that humanity could fight back, but that we spent our time in hiding developing solutions to problems the galaxy didn't know it had. Above them, stars twinkled in patterns that now held new meaning. Humanity had emerged from its chrysalis of deception, not as a butterfly, but as something entirely new, a species that had turned hiding into an art form and deception into a path to unprecedented advancement. To the future, Chen raised his glass in a toast. May it be as interesting as our past. To the future, Elena and Sarah echoed, watching as more ships arrived in orbit. Diplomatic vessels now, coming to understand the species that had hidden in plain sight for so long. The age of deception was over. The age of revelation had begun, and humanity, after 50 years of waiting in the shadows, was ready to step into the light and show the galaxy not just what they had become, but what all species could achieve together. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were curious about what would come next.